story. I'm not pretending to be friends with someone who is a predator and sexually assaults people.
Your wardrobe screams fatherless.
You have more trust in that top side than people.
How was your relationship with your father? Just saying, why did you get the attention you wanted?
You need Jesus.
That's offensive. Hello, my beautiful people. Oh my gosh, I just sounded like the guy like Lance Sosi, the Modern Warrior, except I don't know if he's canceled or not. Honestly, I'm just not even gonna speak like, I'm not gonna speak on that situation. But today is gonna be an interesting episode. The trajectory of this episode is way different than any episode I think I've ever had before, and probably a lot more serious and probably a lot more controversial. I think I talk about a lot of sex stuff, but there was something that happened in our community and in our like little sex work community. And I do think it needs to be addressed, and I do think it needs to be talked about. The thing is, someone in our community and someone in my old agency, Courtney Taylor, was accused of stabbing her boyfriend. I personally think that this Courtney Taylor thing is important to talk about because I've actually met Courtney a few times. I've collabed with her, and although I don't know her extremely well, I know of her extremely well. And I want to emphasize that I know of her and that I do not personally have a close relationship with her. So a lot of the things I'm going to be talking about is stuff that I have learned from other people talking on social media, etc. But all of the stories kind of seem to align. I collabed with her when I was in my old OnlyFans agency, and it was funny because before I even collabed with her, a lot of people warned me, like, she is a drunk, kind of watch out for that girl. And I was like, okay, I mean, she has like 2 million followers, so I want to get that collab in, but people already kind of gave me that warning, like, don't get close with this girl, she's kind of a problem. And, you know, she was actually a very charming person when I did hang out with her. She was full of energy, but I could see the dark side of her when I met her. The first time I collabed with her, the night before, she was so drunk, she burned herself so bad with her curling iron that she was like bleeding. It blistered so bad. She was like bleeding from it. She tried to cover it up with a lot of makeup, and she just started getting drunk again. Like the next morning by like 9 a.m. started drinking again, just so like she didn't even feel the burn. And she missed our first 2 collabs that we were supposed to do because she was drunk. And I had to catch her just at the right time. I didn't really spend the time to get to know her just because she was a drunk, and I personally don't like to surround myself with that kind of energy. I think I was a drunk, honestly, like my senior year of college. And it's like, Adelia today would not hang out with Adelia back then. Not Adelia. Oh my God, my fucking burps are so fucking crazy today. But they're like really painful in my stomach. But the Adelia today, like me today, would not hang out with Adelia back then. And I think she was more than just a drunk. She was like a raging alcoholic and would sometimes kind of turn into a different person when she drank. There are a lot of people defending Courtney. And in my opinion, the people defending Courtney are defending her because of her following and because of her clout, and not really looking at the situation for what it is. And I just wanted to read a little quote from Christian's brother. His name is Jeffrey, who released a statement. So I'll just read this. "It's been a week since my brother was brutally and senselessly killed. Courtney Taylor Clenley's callous actions have not been met with an ounce of remorse. We've seen videos of Courtney kissing her dogs while covered in what we believe to be my brother's blood, and casually getting drinks at a hotel bar later while my brother lays in the morgue." According to his statement, Jeffrey believes that Courtney is being treated differently because of her privilege as a white woman. Within 24 hours of following Toby's death, the detective on this case prematurely concluded that this was not a crime of violence, but the information provided is deficient, and the lack of transparency strongly suggests foul play is involved. Christian's family statement goes on to mention that Taylor has reportedly acknowledged that Toby did not have a weapon and has no injuries to support her story of imminent danger. Additionally, Courtney has yet to explain what happened leading up to Toby's murder, We have every reason to believe that his death was the result of unwarranted and unprovoked violence. We want to see that justice is served. I am going to just quote where I got this from. It's called hotnewhiphop.com. That's my source, hotnewhiphop.com, just so no one tries to claim that this is my own work. But let's let that soak in for a second. There is no evidence of foul play, no marks on her, no signs of a weapon, yet she has not yet been charged. That is crazy to me, and that is crazy that someone might think that this was self-defense on her end. This is definitely something I want to address because people in her inner circle knew that she was abusive towards Christian when she drank. From kicking him to hitting him to screaming at him in public, there are several people who have actually commented on her Instagram and his Instagram, and even people on Twitter saying that they've seen this abusive behavior. She didn't only take out her anger at him, but also people in her friend group who try to get her help or who try to hold her accountable. And I keep hearing friends in like the old agency I was part of defend her, and specifically people saying, let's let the justice system take care of it, or why are you being so mean to her? And that is fucking bullshit, man. She is a white woman with money and a following, and her boyfriend was black, and his family feels like the story isn't getting the coverage that it should. And it isn't really a surprise with how the justice system works in America. She was able to stay at a psych ward on a 72-hour hold and post bail or whatever she was able to do because she hasn't yet been charged. And she is out drinking not even a week after she killed her boyfriend, or allegedly killed her boyfriend. Well, I guess she did kill. Yeah. I'm just going to say allegedly to like avoid any anything I don't want. But he wouldn't have been able to do the same thing if like the roles were reversed. Let alone he wouldn't be able to post bail or be out. He would have been charged, and he wouldn't be allowed to be out drinking at a bar a few days later. And I really want this to be a lesson to people to hold your fucking friends accountable or drop them as friends. I don't give a fuck if it's a hard conversation. I know several people who did try to hold her accountable and it didn't work, but there were plenty of people who did and said nothing and just watched this shit happen. And look, holding people accountable can be fucking hard. And you might think it's not really your place to do so, but I personally think that this is why so many people get complacent, staying the same shitty person that they have their whole life. You know, for the people being like, it's not really your place to hold someone accountable. You can ask them if they hold space for you to hold them accountable. You can try to be like, this isn't right. Like, what you are doing is not right. Because why would you want to be friends with someone where your morals and your values do not align with theirs? And here's my opinion on what friends should be doing. As much as they're emotionally, friends should be honest when you're doing something fucked up, or they're truthfully not a friend. Like, that is the most surface level friend that you can have, to have a friend who does not hold you accountable on shit. You know, if you're out here cheating on someone, this is just an example, but if you're out here cheating on someone and none of your friends say something, I don't think any of those friends are truthfully your friends. I mean, if they know. If they don't know and you're really good at hiding it, that's a different story. But, you know, those friends should be holding you accountable. Like, yo, that's fucked up. Like, that's a nice girl. That's a nice guy. Like, why are you doing that to them? That's not really ethical. You know, don't you want friends who have ethics and morals? Because if they don't have morals or ethics with other people, what makes you think that they're going to have ethics and morals with you, you know? And my heart really goes out to people close to Christian. And he was a sweet, sweet man who did not deserve this. And honestly, my podcast might be coming at a rough time for people close to Christian, but I really hope it hits home for people that we need to change and we need to be better. You know, I just think that this situation, you know, Courtney might actually be held accountable if more people were speaking up or going to law enforcement, or, it's just all about this whole like accountability thing. And I might be wrong. This could just be me speaking out of emotions right now, but emotionally right now, I feel like a lot could have been prevented. I mean, you can never necessarily prevent domestic violence or domestic abuse, but you can definitely try to hold your friends accountable for it or stop being friends with them until they have no one left, because someone who domestically abuses another person, they shouldn't have friends, even if they're great to you. They just, why would you want to be friends with that? It does not make sense. And I think this segues into like, people a lot of the time ask me why I don't really hang out with a lot of people from the University of Arizona anymore, and what was so awful about the culture there. And it's honestly the shallow fucking friendships that I cultivated there. And it was almost like I was hanging out with people and I could tell that they didn't like me, and I would keep hanging out with them, or I could tell that we didn't like morally vibe or ethically vibe, or that we were just like very, very different people. But it's like, I just wanted friends. So I just kind of hung out with whoever was down to party with me. And they kind of changed when I noticed stuff in the friend groups where people were not holding each other accountable. And it just made me not want to hang out with them anymore. I was friends with two people, and word got out that these two people, completely separate occasions, they're completely separate from each other in two different friend groups, but they sexually assaulted others. And guess who was like the only person in the friend group who seemed to like really fucking care? It was me. And maybe it's because I have my own sexual trauma myself, so I know how it feels for other people to go through that. But I was just so surprised that two people could sexually assault someone and they not get like banished. Like I would think that once the word gets out, like they would get banished or people would try to hold them accountable, but no. Every single person in their friend group still invited them out and still considered them close. And just fucking weird that they don't have like the morals or standards to call out what's right or to stand up for like the girls in those situations who came forward. And that just might be my harsh opinion, but that is my opinion. And I'm just going to give like the two examples separately, and anyone who went to the U of A around the same time as me might know who I'm talking about. I graduated 2019. I'm going to do my first impression. This first man in particular, big douchebag. And here's my impression of him. Oh my God, my fucking dick is so fucking huge. It's gonna burst. It's literally the size of my forearm and would destroy you. Oh, can you just fuck me? It hurts so bad from throbbing because it's so fucking big. This man, I am not kidding. He's just so fucking pathetic. Like, so fucking pathetic. And of course, frat boy. What else? And I was hooking up with one of his friends for a few months. And in the time I was hooking up with his friend, I saw this guy act predatory and rapey with multiple women. Like, in front of me. And I was such a cunt to him. Like, I would yell at him and stick up for these other women, but his friends never yelled at him. They were just like, that's how he is when he gets drunk. Like, it's not like the real him. Like, we've tried to have conversations like this with him and he just won't listen. But then they keep inviting him out and hanging out with him. Like, the logic. And I'll just say what happened to me because I can speak what happened to me. But this man tried to finger me while I was sleeping, while his friend who I was hooking up with was in the other room. Basically, my friend was on the bed next to me and she said I was passed out. I was wearing underwear. My dress was kind of like rolled up and I was just asleep on the couch or on the bed. And then he was kind of like inching his like finger towards my underwear, like gonna try to finger me. And she's like, what the fuck are you doing? And then he looked like around and was kind of like, oh, what the fuck? And then went to the other room. And when I heard about this the next morning, I was pissed. I was heated. Of course I'm heated. Someone tried to finger me while I was asleep and I was hooking up with one of his best friends. Like, that was fucking weird. And I seem to be the only person to think it was a big deal. And after this incident, he tried hooking up with my roommates a few months after. And he was so fucked up. She offered, like the kind person she was, to drive him home and make him food to sober him up because he was really fucked up. And after she repeatedly told him no, he tried throwing her on the couch and was kind of like forcibly getting on her to the point she felt the need to run out. And she felt like that was a very traumatic experience. After that, I sent him the longest, nastiest message on Snapchat. If I still had that Snapchat, it got deleted because I posted my OnlyFans link, but I would pull it up because I remember it was nasty. Then I unadded him on Snapchat. I sent him this whole long thing about how, but I waited till the next day when he was sober. I told him how it like fucked up that was to do to my roommate, about the girls who I heard at the University of Arizona, who he would hook up with and they'd barely be conscious. And they were like, I don't think I would have consented if I wasn't almost unconscious. And those are just the stories I heard of. I'm sure there's others. And I told him that I knew he tried to finger me while I was sleeping, and he acted clueless. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I would never do something. Like, I was there. It's just weird. And I pleaded with his friends. I'm like, stop hanging out with him. Like, he's making you guys look bad for continuing to hang out with him. But no one really wanted to listen to what I had to say. And they kept inviting him places because no one wanted to hold him accountable, because no one wants to have those hard conversations about how to be a better person. Like, he shouldn't be continuing to be able to go out with all these people. That's just like enabling so much shit. And, you know, I was proud of myself for sending this man a paragraph, because I'm like, this man needs to have his ego ripped out. He needs to he just needs to feel so little for doing what he did. I don't think anyone really called him out like I did before that. And his friends were kind of like, why did you do that, man? Or like, they kind of just like laughed it off, or, you know, it was very like, oh, whatever, Adelia is just going to be like a little emotional, or, you know, something like that. But I didn't think it was like small. Like, that was a very big thing that he did to multiple women. There was another guy who was a predator and hung out with a different friend group of mine. First time I ever met him, I threatened to punch him because he grabbed me and tried kissing me. To be exact in the story, we were both in Cabo on spring break, and I heard of this kid before because he like saw me on Instagram. You know, I would post my butt. Like, I was definitely one of like the first OG like Instagram hoes at my school, and then other people kind of started following. I feel like me and this other girl, Hannah Palmer, shout out Hannah Palmer, I feel like we were kind of the trendsetters of like, let's be a whore on Instagram. Hannah, just saying, I say the word whore in a very endearing fashion. Anyways, so we were on spring break, and he would send my friends messages about me, like knowing that they'd show me, being like, I don't like, and he would say things like, I want to fuck that girl so bad, like I need her to fuck me, like just kind of like gross, creepy shit that I'm like, you don't even know me. And also, it's weird to send anyone, even if it's a friend, that like, oh, I need her to fuck me. Like, no, that's fucking creepy and weird. And then I had my friend respond like I was still getting over my ex, which wasn't even true, but I'm like, just tell him something. Well, I told her to say, no, you're an ugly fucking fuck. I would never be down. And she's like, no, that's so mean. So I was like, okay, say I'm getting over my ex. And she said that. And he was like, I could make her forget about her ex in 2 seconds. Like, excuse me? You are so gross. So in Cabo, I was with this guy who I would end up dating, but we weren't dating yet. And I was in Cabo with him, just hanging out. And then this kid comes up and tries to grab me. And he's like, I can make you forget about him. Let me take you for the night or something. And I almost punched him. I think like if I'm remembering correctly, I think like someone kind of held me back, and I was like having my finger up like, you disgusting little pig, like just being, I'm like, what makes you think you can take me away from another guy and be like, I can make you forget about him for the night? And he was like mind blown with how fucking mean I was to him, like actually mind blown. He's like, most girls just kind of let me do that shit. And I'm like, what? Okay, well, not me. I was like, you should be embarrassed that you even thought you had a chance. And I was like, if you touch me again, I'll fucking punch you. And, you know, I'll tell you, that felt good. I feel like with someone who does have a lot of sexual trauma with me, when I can stand up to a guy being creepy to either me or another girl, it feels really great, because like, I didn't used to be the girl that stood up for myself for other people. And, you know, men kind of overpowered me sometimes, and I would kind of just like let it happen. And now that I like really found my voice, I'm like, nah, it feels good and it feels powerful. Here's like the weird part. So we eventually became friends after yelling at him. I found a new friend group and he just happened to be in the fucking promoter that like got us tables in the friend group. And the next few times I hung out with him, he'd send me like really weird messages being like, I just like, I could barely contain myself. I'm like, you're so beautiful. I just like really want you, blah, blah, blah. And like, it was just fucking gross, and it made me uncomfortable to be around him. And I had to tell him that if he wanted to be friends with me or have like even talk to me, he had to stop this shit. And I don't know if other girls in my situation would have been as forward, and I'm not shaming any girls who aren't as forward. It took a lot of trauma for me to become this forward, and I don't want other girls to have to go through this trauma to become this forward. I'm just saying this is like in my situation what I did, but I told him that he 1,000% needs to chill or he's going to get a reputation as a predator. And then he chilled. And we actually became like really good friends for a while after that because he did chill. At least around me, he chilled. With girls around me, he chilled. Like he wasn't this creepy guy who I once met. And I really called him out and I was like, oh my God, like I really had a good influence on him. He's a good person. And, my whole senior year of college, actually, I was like a part of the friend group and hung out with him every weekend. And then once I graduated, a girl tweeted that he had sexually assaulted her. And I was very fucking disappointed, but not surprised. And this girl in her tweets had said that there were other girls to have come forward and that he's very well known in the Newport area for doing stuff like this. So I posted it on my story and I remember he sent me a screenshot or something like that and was like, you're a fucking fake friend, and then blocked me. And I was like, how am I being a fake friend? I literally called you out on my story. I'm not pretending to be friends with someone who is a predator and sexually assaults people. I'm not even pretending. I didn't even think I needed to give you that closure that we're not going to be friends anymore because you sexually assaulted a girl. And I seemed to be the only one who dropped him. A lot of people stopped publicly hanging out with him for a while, but they're like, yeah, we still talk. I'm still kind of friends with him. And I'm like, why? Why are you still friends with him? Like, it just like drove me crazy in my mind. I mean, I can't impose my morals and values onto other people, but I remember it drove me crazy because I'm like, he didn't lose really anything. I mean, he had to delete his social media because he didn't want people finding him and finding his job and stuff like that. Since he deleted his social media so quickly after the tweet came out, he was able to keep his corporate job. He kept being a promoter at some places. And it's crazy because a lot of people were like, he wouldn't do something like that. And I'm like, even just from my experience with him, I knew he would do something like that. Even like just from my personal experience. So I just think that we need to kind of change the culture into taking more accountability. And I don't want everyone to think it's just me trying to hold everyone else accountable. I've had to be held accountable too. And those conversations are fucking tough. It's very uncomfortable to be on the receiving end of things when it's like you're kind of not in the space to hear something, but it needs to be heard eventually. And my friend, Taylor, who actually edits the podcast, had to hold me accountable when I was clout chasing a little bit. And here's the thing. Did I realize I was clout chasing? No, I really did not think I was clout chasing at all. Like in my head, I was just, well, now that I think about it, I'm like, in my head, I just thought she had a lot of followers and could benefit my podcast. But I really wasn't ready to hear what she had to say at the time. And that can honestly be the really hard part about holding people accountable is a lot of the time they're not ready to hear it and they don't want to hear it. But I think it's like the true friends who stick around while you hold them accountable. Those are the ones that are there for the long run. And as I said, it was a very uncomfortable situation to be in with Taylor calling me out. But here's the thing. No, I'm not even going to defend myself here because to me, what she was saying sounded really harsh and bitchy. But to her, it needed to be said. And she didn't think I would listen when she tried to say it nicely. So truthfully, I give her a lot of credit for sticking her ground. Although I do think being a little nicer does work better for me, but hold people accountable in whatever way that you feel is necessary in the situation. And sometimes you might lose friends over it, but it is necessary. And the story with Taylor is that I had someone on my podcast who really did not align with my values at all. And she said some kind of fucked up shit. And in my head, I wanted to cut out bits and pieces of the podcast so I could make the podcast aligned with my brand and just cut the stuff out that didn't align with my brand. So that, you know, in my head, it was a win-win situation where I'm like, all right, I got the podcast to align with my brand. I cut all the stuff out where she says some fucked up shit. And then I can still get her, like, cause she had a lot of followers. So I can still get her followers to listen to my podcast. And that's just where my head was at. And Taylor got pissed. Like, she was like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you shitting on your own morals to get an audience you probably don't even want? And here's honestly how I justified it. And it honestly, I'm going to be honest, after Taylor called me out, it took me 2 weeks-ish of really processing things to want to hear what she had to say so that we could talk about things. But it was just kind of hard with, like, you know, a boss employee dynamic of like, how do we go forward from here? And it did take 2 weeks of me processing to be able to move forward. But here is how I justified it. The girl had over 1 million followers. My OnlyFans income hit a peak from about June to October, and then my income did go down a lot. And I no longer had like thousands and thousands of dollars to spend on ads and growing my podcast every week. Like, I just didn't have the money I once had. And I don't want people to like get confused. Like, I'm still like doing pretty good. I'm still doing like very good compared to other people. It's just, you know, I hit my peak and I know I can get it back to where it was again. I just think like with inflation and all this stuff. Anyways, that is not the point. My ADD brain was just going off. But in my head, here's how I justified it. Having someone who was kind of a shitty person on my podcast to be able to reach her following was saving me a ton of money on promotion and stuff. Like, in my head, people don't really get to the top without bending your morals and values a little bit. And I was really thinking about Jeff, is it Jeff Bezos? Like the Amazon guy? I think it is. And although he employs his employees like a very shitty wage, he's like one of the richest people in the world. Since having a reach of over 1 million followers with this girl, I was like, you know, it's the sacrifice I wanted to make. And it was a big sacrifice for not aligning with this girl and not really agreeing with her values just to reach her following. And honestly, it was a really fucking hard decision for me. I know Taylor was like, why is it a hard decision for you? But it was a hard decision for me because, like, in my head, I was passing up basically like free money and free promo and free advertisement. But she's like, girl, stick to your values. And, you know, my values, I've really had to even think of my values after that conversation with Taylor to be like, you know, educating myself a little bit more, having to be more aware, having to, you know, get to know situations that I wouldn't know before, just so when someone says something completely out of whack on my podcast, I can be like, huh, why do you think this way? And like throw facts back at them. But when I interviewed this girl, I didn't have any of those facts. I was a little taken aback. But my other thought process was actually, I don't want this girl to be mad at me. This girl who I didn't even like from meeting her, since she said some fucked up shit. And it took a while for me to realize that this was like a people pleasing tendency. I didn't even know I was a people pleaser, but I've learned that I was a people pleaser. And why would I care if someone likes me who I don't even really like? But at the same time, I really wanted her and everyone in this universe to like me, which is impossible. But it took a lot of consideration after Taylor was extremely adamant about her stance and what she really thought my stance should be. And we actually got in like a pretty big fight about it. And I got really defensive at first because I didn't really realize I was trying to do anything wrong. I mean, the thing is, I wasn't trying to do anything wrong. I was just justifying things in my head where she's like, nah, girl, you can't justify that shit. And sometimes the truth and consequences of actions can be really fucking hard to hear. Like, your ego doesn't want to hear that you're doing something wrong, and it barely wants to register that you can have faults too. And I did have faults in this situation. Like, I really do want my podcast to be ethical. I want to be ethical myself. I want to practice what I preach, kind of thing. And it's hard to practice what you preach when I wasn't even being self-aware in that situation, you know? But I ended up making the right move for me just because of Taylor. It also helped protect the podcast's brand, although it's kind of non-existent still. But when it does blow up, because I think it will, but when it does blow up, I protected my podcast brand by not having this girl on. And I really do only want people on who align with like most of my values and morals and don't say a lot of out-of-pocket shit, unless I'm able to hold them accountable on the podcast. But honestly, I don't think I have that kind of strength yet. I think it'll be a while, but I don't even think that's the brand of my podcast. I want the brand of my podcast to be like someone like being able to humanize a sex worker, being able to talk about kinks openly, not kink shaming. Like, you know, that's what I want the brand of the podcast to be. I don't want the brand of the podcast to be like someone saying out of pocket shit and me having to hold them accountable the whole time. Like, that's just uncomfortable for me. I want the brand to be helping sex workers somehow. And I just recently had to be on the other end of things where I had to hold one of my best friends accountable, and it didn't go over well. And here's the thing, when Taylor first tried to hold me accountable, it didn't go over very good at first. I mean, we didn't name call, we didn't do anything crazy, but it took some time and consideration to, you know, realize that she was right. With this friend who I just had to hold accountable, it went very, very differently. And this is one of the hard parts of taking that step in life, to see where your boundaries are and what you will accept in friendships. And it takes a lot of growth. It takes a lot of maturity and a lot of evaluating what you deserve. A lot of people struggle to set boundaries because they don't think they deserve the high standards of friends that they do. And that was definitely the position that I was just in. And it's a shitty, shitty position to be in. It's good to talk about when someone hurts your feelings and when someone is doing something that's a little out of line, or maybe they don't even realize that it's out of line, and like you just should be able to express like, that hurt my feelings, like this, I didn't like how you did this, and you know, just have that open line of communication. Like that should be kind of the bare minimum of friendship. And holding someone accountable doesn't always look like you were fucked up, that was like, what's wrong with you? That's actually a really bad way to hold someone accountable, because who wants to like give that space to listen to you when you're like, you're a fucked up person, how could you do that, etc. The good way to go about it is kind of to say, this is my boundary and please respect it. This is how this hurt my feelings. This is how what you did affected me. How can we grow? How can we learn? And I just think some people don't want to be held accountable in life, and that is when it's time to let that person go. And this is just what happened to me, and it truthfully fucking sucks. Oh my God. And here's the thing, I was holding a friend accountable for doing something she knew would hurt me, and I expressed would hurt me, and she started calling me names and gaslighting me when I said it did in fact hurt my feelings and that I was in fact mad. And I gave it a few days to see if she would calm down and be ready to talk, but she proceeded to unfollow me and call me immature for being mad at my boundaries being disrespected and telling me I ruined her whole week. And I had a lot of thinking to do, and it made me reevaluate my friendship as a whole, where I would continue, like, would I want to continue being friends with someone who I can't even like share my feelings with, you know? And the conclusion that I came to was that although what she did hurt my feelings, like what she did to hurt my feelings, that in itself was pretty insignificant. The inability to acknowledge how the action was hurtful to me and the gaslighting was very significant. This is something, this is someone I thought I'd be friends with forever. And something that I've learned is that no matter how much you love someone, you really do have to love yourself more, and that you deserve better treatment. And this is just an example of how, like, when you grow and when you set higher standards, morals, etc., like, there are a lot of people who you won't have in life. And holding people accountable does not always have, like, the outcome that you're hoping for, but it really clears people out of your life who do not deserve to be there. And, you know, I'm definitely proud with how far I've come with holding people accountable. I know it's been like a little roller coaster, because I never used to do that shit. And then when I started holding people accountable, I'd get very angry at them when I was holding them accountable, so it wouldn't go over well. And then after lots of like self-work and healing, then I started being like, oh, that hurt my feelings. Like, you know, started saying stuff in a different way. And now it's It just feels a lot more peaceful to hold people accountable, or if they don't want to be held accountable, just cut them out, man. Sorry, this was like an intense episode. Let me just like wiggle it out for a second. And you know, I don't want to necessarily say, like, I know I started off talking about Courtney Taylor and how, you know, it should be a lesson to hold people accountable. And I don't want people to be like extremely down on themselves that they didn't hold her accountable. Because there's no way that they could have known that this would have happened. They could have seen the signs, but they couldn't have known. I just think it's a lesson for the future. And I don't want to seem like I am shitting on any of you, because I know everyone is grieving, and it's important to take lessons in life where you can, and to be able to grow from situations like this. And I just want to say again, I'm very sorry to the people continuing to grieve. I know that I've only met him a few times, but he was a very kind man, and it is really fucking sad. But anyways, just to close it off, you can find all of my links at It's Deelz, DEELZ.com. And please subscribe to my OnlyFans. I feel like that's really inappropriate to say as the ending of this episode, but I'll just leave it at that. Thank you guys.